It's Wednesday, February 15, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Thanks for joining us. The local business community is calling for an urgent resolution to the current legal wrangling at the helm of the Central Bank of Barbados. The plea comes after details emerged of a nasty fallout between the Governor, Dr. Delisle Worrell, and Finance Minister Chris Sinclair, which is now before the law courts. President of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Eddie Abed, warns that now is not the time for the central bank to be at the center of any lengthy internal court battle, given the state of the country's foreign reserves and the threat of currency devaluation. Equally concerned are Executive Director of the Barbados International Business Association, Henderson Holmes, and Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Charles Herbert, who both agreed with Abed that the current uncertainty at the central bank could only spell more bad news for the island's ailing economy.
The situation is not at all ideal. We are all aware of the perilous state of the foreign exchange in Barbados. We're also extremely concerned about not only how we got to this worrying situation, but what has been happening in terms of printing money, essentially for current expenditure.
Nothing more than a bluffer. That's how President of the Unity Workers Union, Caswell Franklin, is describing Commerce and Trade Minister Donville Innes. Franklin made the comments in response to Innes's address at a recent custom brokers meeting on the delay in transitioning the Customs and Excise Department into the Barbados Revenue Authority. Innes told brokers on the weekend that while the BRA may be experiencing personal and financial challenges, it must never be ruled by the self-serving, egotistical attitudes of a few individuals or entities whose survival depend on membership fees. However, Franklin fired back, suggesting that the minister should mind his own business.
I should tell Donald mind his business because he's not properly informed. He does not understand what is happening, and he's a bluffer. They want to give people the impression that he knows everything. He knows very little. And he should stick to what he knows.
Parliament stamped its approval on the Barbados Revenue Authority Amendment Bill 2017 last night, but not before Prime Minister Frondell Stewart chided the opposition Barbados Labour Party for its stance on the measure. He blasted the opposition's suggestion that the amendment, which makes provisions for the issuance of tax clearance certificates, infringes on the privileges of the people of Barbados. Describing the BLP's arguments as perverse, he insisted that it was not a big issue and the country needs a system that would capture tax defaulters.
What really can be wrong with a revenue commissioner trying to block loopholes in legislation to make sure that people live up to and discharge their tax obligations? This legislation can only be a source of concern for persons who are not interested in paying tax. For persons who are interested in being tax compliant, and in circumstances where they can't afford to pay all that they owe, to come forward and say, yes, I owe, I can't pay all now, take 10%, and I will pay the remaining 90% over a time period that we can agree on. What can be wrong with that? In circumstances where, as the Minister of Education said, and the Minister of Health, we still want the same services. We want proper roads. We want a proper healthcare system. We want a proper education system. We want all these things. But we want a situation also where as few people as possible are paying taxes and tax dodgers are allowed to enjoy respite and a lot of comfort in Barbados. That cannot continue to be the case.
However, in her contribution to the debate, opposition leader Mia Motley said the bill was ill-advised and would put ordinary citizens at a disadvantage.
It is ill-advised in the format in which it is. The member for St. Joseph made a formal request that this be sent to select committee. I am entered this debate to add my voice to that request, because I believe that the officers of the Barbados Revenue Authority, as well as the Solicitor General, ought to come to Parliament to a select committee and let us go through to ensure that in trying to do a good thing, we do not end up becoming an instrument of oppression and the very thing that reduces Barbados' competitiveness and the ease of doing business in Barbados to the eyes of those who want to come and invest here, making us less attractive at the very time when we need confidence and we need people invested in this economy more than ever.
In other news, Prime Minister Frondell Stewart is heading a 7-member delegation to Guyana today for the 28th Intersessional CARICOM Summit. Regional security matters topped the agenda of the February 16 to 17 summit, at which regional leaders are due to sign the protocol amending the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas to incorporate the Council of National Security and Law Enforcement as an organ of the community and the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security as an institution of the community. Also down for discussion are issues of correspondent banking, tourism, the status of the CARICOM single market and economy, relations with the Dominican Republic, and Barbados' hosting of Cari Festa in August this year. In sports, middle order batsman Jonathan Carter says Barbados' pride will be at their best for the semi-finals of the Regional Super50, which bowls off in Antigua today. Last year's losing finalists, Pride dominated Group B, staged in Barbados, losing just one of the 8 games as they accumulated 33 points to top their Group 5 points ahead of the second-placed Jamaica Scorpions. Pride take on Leeward Islands Hurricanes in the second semi-final at Coolidge Cricket Ground on Thursday. Now, today's first semi-final is set also for Coolidge between reigning champions Trinidad and Tobago and Scorpions. Experienced fast bowler Ravi Rampal believes knowledge of the conditions could give Trinidad and Tobago Red Force the edge over the Scorpions.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
It's the celebration of agriculture, 50 years and beyond. Come and experience this year's AgroFest exhibition at the historic Queen's Park on February 24th to 26th. Don't miss the African Heritage Month celebrations, the AgroFest Special Edition, an impressive display of leather products made from Barbados' black belly sheep, the best of crop over 2016, and much more. AgroFest 2017. Tickets available at all official box offices.
In news from our regional neighbors, Venezuela's vice president hits back at the U.S. after it slapped sanctions on him for allegedly trafficking drugs. Tariq El Assami was described by the U.S. Treasury as a drug kingpin who worked with traffickers in Mexico and Colombia to ship drugs to America. However, the vice president responded, accusing the U.S. of defamatory aggression. President Nicolas Maduro has also demanded a public apology from the U.S. for the sanctions on his new deputy. The order freezes Al-Sami's assets in the U.S. and bar him from entering the country. And on the international scene, there are reports that Moscow has deployed a cruise missile in an apparent treaty violation. According to this CNN report, the move is just the latest in a string of Russian provocations in the early days of the Donald Trump administration.
And we're seeing kind of it all. The spy ship floating around off of Delaware. It is in international waters, by the way. A stepped up of its missile that it violates a treaty. And both of those we've known about and have made appearances before. But we're also seeing these unsafe, provocative maneuvers by Russian planes against a U.S. ship in the Black Sea. And we're seeing this all, within a matter of days of each other. It's confusing because Russia says it wants a good relationship with the U.S. The Trump administration says it's open to a good relationship with Russia, but this is clearly Russia asserting itself. doesn't like the sanctions that the Obama administration put on it after the allegations of hacking. It doesn't like those accusations leveled against it. It doesn't like the Russophobia that it keeps saying the U.S. has toward it. So it's Russia clearly putting itself out there, making itself known in these somewhat provocative ways. And the U.S. is, moving forward and trying to still work together, at least in some areas.
And on that note, we come to the end of our news update. But for more, visit our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you, as well as Channel 99 on Flow TV and Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good morning.